Hey, hey, and good evening. This is Tiger. Welcome to my stream. Where are you, AJ? I cannot see you on the chat. Am I not transmitting? Here you are. Hey ho, she says. What is wrong? Coconut trees, a city radar. Hello to you. We are now having a look today at the coconut trees in Scotland for the third part of the trilogy about the Fife Circle Line. We have one branch to run. Travel to explore. Inspector, hey to you. Great to see you guys for one more nice and cozy stream in Trains in World 5. With a little look at why we actually have those blue trains that say ScotRail. Super Paul, so nice to see you. Hello to you. And what is ScotRail actually opposed to British Rail? Is it just a brand? Is it just a company? So what happened to my OBS? Here we are. I can turn on the DLC and also the service marker, and we're running one train service in the morning from Edinburgh Waverley to Glenrothes with Thornton around the Dunfermline loop, the loop line, as opposed to the main line that takes us along the coast through Aberdour and Burnt Island, Kinghorn, and then Kirkcaldy. And that we also travelled when we were coming in from the Leven branch. And City Radar says we are all greenish. Well, it's not easy being green. Only AJ and Spectre step out of the line a bit with being red and orange. Well, actually we should be all like blue and white for Scotland. It's not easy being green, says Spectre, yes? We had the same thought as it appears, and my thought was to pick a service that I liked because it was taking us into the rising sun, and at the same time encountering an Azuma train coming in from the Glasgow direction when we're leaving Edinburgh Waverley. So let's hope we will meet that train again, and this was not just an odd, obscure occurrence. Yes, when I saw the train I was thinking of you saying Azuma. Let's drive it. Well, we might be going back to the East Coast main line and drive some Azuma trains, especially since I have realized that for the February batch you actually have to drive quite a distance to fulfill the requirements of 1,000 miles in a short month.
Calling at Haymarket, South Gyle, Edinburgh Gateway, Dalmeny, North Queensferry, Inverkeithing, Rosysthe, Dunfermline City, Dunfermline Queen Margaret, Cowdenbeath, Lochgelly, Cardenden, Glenrothes with Thornton. If you see something that doesn't look right, speak to staff or text the British Transport Police on 61016. We'll sort it. See it, say it, sort it.
Yeah, this is what the lady said. And Theodoros, good evening to you. So nice to see you. Lady told us where the service is going to take us. In case we need the wipers, let's turn them on. Test is okay for the GMSR. We have lights. We have the safety systems on. The reverser gets put to forward automatically if you open the doors by using the keyboard shortcut. That's an interesting fact as well. Let's activate the DRA on the rear cab. Let's get the camera into position. You can see we have a bit of snow and it is still dark, but the sun will rise soonish, if I remember correctly. And let's see if we get our encounter with the Azuma. We have a green light, we can close the doors. Again, starting from Edinburgh Waverley, a really beautiful station also. If you look at all the beautifully lit buildings, the Hotel Bristol, I think this is. The other one was the castle and other historical buildings in Edinburgh. For a moment I thought I stalled my train, but no, everything is good. Maybe I turn down the volume a bit. Those are the National Archives, I think. Sitting on the bridge here. We're starting with a limit of 20. Passing through that tunnel. Inspector, should the floor plates under the doors not be receded? This is a thing that I actually was wondering quite a lot. If you look at them, they very often look like they are, you can't see them now properly, that they are actually scratching the platform walls. What they are not, they are on top of them, and so there is not actually a collision, but nevertheless I also think that they should actually be retracted. And look, here is our Azuma with the modern LNER branding. Azuma. Can accelerate to. This is our light indicating wheel slip protection system is active. Lady announces our approach to Haymarket. What is still Edinburgh? And at least in this DLC you can feel it. You can really feel it if the rails are slippery due to rain, moisture or ice just for being cold. You get wheel slips much easily and much more easily, and also accelerating is sometimes a bit of a challenge, especially in that quite significant gradient that you have around Dunfermline. It's more or less up the hill to Cowdenbeath and then down again. Haymarket. Theodorus, is that PIS in vanilla game or are you using third-party app? No, I'm not using any third-party stuff. That is in the game just as it is. This is Rivet we have to thank for this. So, snow at Haymarket. Yeah, and we've seen this livery quite a lot through the game. We've seen it here on the Turbo Star, the 170. Obviously we have already seen it on the 314 and Cathcart Circle, and then a bit more recently there has been a 380-0, I think, in this livery, and also the 158 Sprinter or Express Sprinter. In this livery, and this is why I thought it actually merits to look into. What did I do? It merits to investigate what ScotRail actually is. And as always, things are more interesting than you think in the beginning, because it turned out that ScotRail is at least 5 different things. Now you can see it's actually, even with throwing sand, we see the wheel slip protection system in action when accelerating away from the platform. Juniper, nice to see you on the chat. Oh hey Tiger, let me just grab some popcorn and settle in. You do that. Grab some popcorn and then join us on our journey out of Edinburgh, across the Firth of Forth into Fife, and then towards Dunfermline via Rosysthe, and further on to Cowdenbeath, Cardenden, Lochgelly, or was it? And then Glenrothes with Thornton. We have to stop in South Gyle. Not every service stops in South Gyle, but this one does. Those services actually end at Glenrothes with Thornton in real life, so they're not going on, as far as I was able to see. They're not going on around the circle. So it is not really a circle line from the way that it is used, but you could do a circle, so the tracks are there. Vike! Hey, first time actually watching live. Been watching the YouTube replays, but nice to catch a stream for once. So nice to have you on the chat. Welcome to the channel. And Juniper says, do you have an opinion on the new Mittenwald Bahn? Looks interesting to me because of its largely single track, but I may get more playtime out of Kaiserslautern route, but Innsbruck is so pretty. I have not really looked into it yet, so I don't have an opinion. It looked nice when I checked into the release stream, but I did not really have a lot of time, so that's all I can say. And since, yeah, we all know that I go a bit frustrated with the policies of DTG in the past months, so that I'm lagging behind with all the DLCs a bit.
South Gyle. Don't forget to take your belongings with you before you leave the train.
And I don't really enjoy this hopping from one hype to the other, and then never hearing anything about that route that was the hype a couple of weeks before. So I'm going back to the more older route and be relaxed when playing it. So South Gyle, all this ran time. Sometimes you really have to use some sand. and slowing down the train. No, as always I overbraked a bit. What happens if you read the chat? Inspector says Kaiserslautern is a sad story for me, liking the route, but they pushed out 2 updates last week, which did nothing, more or less. Yeah, that's the thing. Let's build a sand castle, says CD Radar. Here on this route. Is there a sand castle? They have sand castles on the Blackpool branches line, right? As route tasks. Signal is green. Can close the doors. With the sand that I spilled on the track. Oh, this is what you're saying. Yes. I'm throwing a lot of sand when slowing down here. And the thing is, if you go into 5 now, most probably you will get a wheel slip protection alert. No, not if I go into 6. Oh, here it works. Maybe we're not going uphill. But perhaps a snowman would be nice. Snow Hank. Yes, Hank can build us a snowman. I see. Wheel slip protection. Yes. Announce the Edinburgh Gateway.
Soon arrive at Edinburgh Gateway. Don't forget to take your belongings with you before you leave the train.
Theodorus asks if driver get a pay cut if they are using too much sand in real life. I don't think so. In former times they had those bonuses for not using more coals and water than necessary on the steam locomotives, and I learned that in France they still have those bonuses even if they are not getting any water and coals allocated anymore. But unions are powerful. So maybe they have a sand bonus as well. I think they refill the sand quite often just to have the boxes full. So that you would not really wait until it is empty and then refill it, but keep it full. Spectre says TGV drivers get bonuses if they use less water and coal. That is tricky. Yes, there was a comment underneath one of my steam engine videos telling me that, and I can totally imagine that even if there is no coal and water anymore allocated, those bonuses could not be removed because the unions wouldn't agree. Yes, that's it. You never give away what you have acquired. So, now we're getting the wheel slip protection. And we have to play a bit with our throttle. Cannot just digitally put it to notch 7. Or typically you would pull away from the platform with notch 5 something. And not without some sand being thrown. Now you can see that the dawn is already at work across the Firth of Forth. Inspector says, look boss, 0 coal, 0 water, where is my money? Well, That is an integral part of the payment, right? And Juniper, what was the second part? I mean, the train can't leave the empty sand, so they must track it somehow, right? With empty sand. Yeah, this is why they, as much as I know, they keep it full, those sand boxes, every time they have a chance to refill it. And they should not throw around that much sand. I remember there being a discussion in Germany about using the sand because it isolated, in some cases, the track circuit systems with some difficult situations, crashes or near crashes, so that the Deutsche Bahn instructed their drivers to not throw too much sand unless it is necessary. What is, well, a bit questionable, obviously, because throwing sand to be able to stop your train is a safety critical thing to do. Cedar says, international survey question for the chat: is snow where you are right now, and how many degrees is it outside? Oh, I can tell we had a small amount of snow this morning when I left the house. Most of it melted during the day, and it was, when I left the house this morning, minus 2.5 degrees. What I was quite happy about the temperature as well as about the snow. That was the AWS for the reduction to 80. Will not really go beyond that. I have to remember that we stop at Dalmeny just before we get to the bridge. And Juniper says, my place, it is going from -1 right now to +16 next few days. Oh. And we will probably get something like this as well. +16 is hard. $30 degrees, suspect no snow. Okay, I'm on holiday right now. Oh, how nice. And you're still watching the stream. Which reminded me what we're going to put in the channel points prediction today. Yeah, I was wondering.
We'll soon arrive at Dalmeny. Don't forget to take your belongings with you before you leave the train.
And Super pauses, I still have some snow left over from Thursday. It's currently -2. Yeah, there is not enough snow in the world anymore. At least in Central Europe. In other places there might be too much snow and too much cold. I understand that. But with us, I actually could do with a bit more. So we actually lost a lot of time because we could not really accelerate because of the wheel slipping. So that was nice. We got today's wet weather announcement. Warning about slippery surfaces. And actually people sometimes slip off the platforms and the overpasses quite a lot in this DLC. Hey. Especially North Queensferry, where we have to stop right now after passing the 4th bridge. People really fall off the platforms a lot there. And Theodorus has never had and will have any snow in my place unless the whole planet Earth axis tilts. Yep. Look at this. Isn't this nice? I think it is. Today we can also introduce the mastery reward on this line. That is not always so easy to see, but it is there, nevertheless. Problem is just I probably have to do it in photo mode because I have to stop at North Queensferry, but maybe we do it from when we stopped at North Queensferry. Otherwise I will probably
We'll soon arrive at North Queensferry.
be not able to stop at North Queensferry because coming in there we are actually going downhill quite a bit. And in those slippery conditions I need to focus. Let's hope that no one jumps in front of the train. North Queensferry is a bit of a place where something like this happens. What did I tell you? And getting the train to a stop in North Queensferry with snow on the tracks is a bit tricky. Another form to fill out, says Spectre, yeah. But I did not want to do the thing with the emergency brake. Let's check out if we can see the sharks. Here it is, the shark. Blush. Once more. Whoosh. That's the Mastery Award, in case you were interested. And again, someone is trying to enter the train. Bloop. And she got deleted. So even here, when going downhill, we're getting the wheel slip protection like quite fast. Now they got the next meal for the shark. Yes! Master rewards in Scotland are a bit weird. Spaceships and sharks. Suspector. Well, I don't know why they came up with that. At least not as cheesy as the one in Switzerland. Have any of you tried the new Prague Metro Simulator? Well, if that is not a question for CD Radar back in service and Metro Driver. Actually, I've not. No evidence, no paperwork, says Theodorus. Don't mind if I do, says CD Radar. Yep. But I knew it. In North Queensferry, people never stay on the platform. Maybe.
Soon arrive at Inverkeithing. Don't forget to take your belongings with you before you leave the train.
So, Inverkeithing, and from here we will branch off to the left to the loop line and Rosysthe in Dunfermline. So, how late will Tiger be at the end of the service? That is an interesting question. It's hard to predict that with yes and no, huh? It's hard for me to predict this myself. And to you the simulation is out of 10. For CD Radar the question is obviously. Okay, now it switched. It's one of those situations where you don't get the green light before closing the doors. We've talked about this a couple of times. And actually you should not close your doors as long as you don't have a proceed aspect. The CD Radar says he has not played it yet. But I guess you will, because you can't wait to do things like running a metro train in Prague in your free time, in your spare time. So now we're going to the left. So this is the interesting part compared to what we did before. In the first stream we went to the right towards Dalgety Bay, and now on this track with a limit of 30 we're going towards Rosysthe. There's also a small yard there. It's one scenario where you can pick up a train there and get it back to Mark Inch. Cedar says tomorrow he will play the in real life version but in the present. Yeah. This must be really weird to see something in a simulator that you do in real life. So, even without an announcement board, as soon as we are across those switches here, we can accelerate 65. Rosythe does not have a speed limit, so we will stop out of the 65 there. Yeah, Kara, I can hear you. She's dreaming again. Your new dog? No, our second dog, Kara. The surviving one.
We'll soon arrive at Rosysthe. Don't forget to take your belongings with you before you leave the train.
So, coming into Rosythe. Inspector says he saw some Malinois at the dog park a few days ago. They are so obedient and elegant. They are. And obedient they sometimes are. As long as you play with them, they are. If you tell them to just be quiet and sit in the corner and wait until you have time, then it is more difficult with the obedience. And Superpaw says, are the old trains still in use in real life about the Prague Metro? So, talking about old trains, this is actually a good cue, because I can blend over to the presentation and talk about the history of ScotRail, and that also touches what kind of vehicles were used on ScotRail trains. So, presentation. Before we go to the ScotRail history, just a quick reminder of what we talked about 2 weeks ago with the history of British railways. We had looked at things like that there was a grouping in the year 1923 where the big four British railway companies were put together, merged with smaller or merged out of smaller ones. Last week we heard, for example, that the Northern British Railway, that was the big player here in the Edinburgh and Fife area at the time, was merged with the London and North Eastern Railway. The London, Midland and Scottish Railway got other parts from Scottish lines, especially from the Caledonian Railway, who was the other big railway at the time. So the Scottish part of the railway system was especially in those two private railway companies, and we learned that after World War II in 1948 the nationalisation period happened under the British Transport Commission, a government agency. British Railways was created and born, and all the big four and other smaller railways were merged together in one big railway provider, the British Railways, subdivided into different regions. For example, also the Scottish region with this light blue totem emblem that they used, and yeah, more or less following a division into the big four. We had different regions, 6 at the beginning, later 5, because the eastern and northeastern were merged. And then across 1954 with the modernization and the beaching cuts in the 60s, British Railways was transformed a bit into not more controlled by a state agency but by a statutory company. The British Railways Boards, renamed as British Rail then, using this logo, still one monolithic block run by the state. And we have learned that in the 80s there was the era of sectorization, where we had those brands and running around rather than the regions. We had it separated into the sectors, with the passenger railway subdivided into intercity, special provincial, later than regional railways. Remember those liveries on the Pacers, for example, or the Sprinter and the Cornwall Local, West Cornwall Local, and Network Southeast was a similar thing. Oh, I just stopped the chat. Plane Train, Anime Fan, hello, thank you for waving for the first time on the chat. And CD Raider says no, they are not. And Plane Train, Anime Fans, just wanted to hop onto a train sim stream to talk about train stuff, as if my name already didn't give it away. Yes, welcome to do so. And you just dropped into our short recap about the history of British Railways, so that we had some milestones back. And Plane Train Anime Fan says he visited, or they visited, the UK 15 years ago for the last time. Yeah, sectorization in the 80s with those thingies, then rail freight subdivided, train load freight, rail freight distribution, then in 89 with those liveries where you can see what they were running, petroleum, metals and stuff. And here we had the Scottish railway lines, especially here in the regional railways, and so the trains were running regional railways liveries. Until then, the privatisation kicked in with 1993, the Railway Act, and then the lines were franchised out to private train operating companies, and the tracks and signals and so forth were mostly owned by infrastructure manager Railtrack at the beginning, and then 2001 Network Rail. And then, most interesting, actually a really interesting thing to happen is that starting in December 2024 with the Passenger Railway Services Public Ownership Act, yeah, the renationalisation was set into place, and now we have a situation where a new big railway provider, the Great British Railway, is supposed to collect all the franchises again, and then we will have one big monolithic block again. They will also take over ownership on the tracks, and it hasn't been created, the Great British Railways, but there is already a transition team to do so. And Plane Train Anime Fan says, I took an excursion train on the Isle of Wight last time, where they're pulled by the austerity steam engine. See, yeah, this is the steam line on the Isle of Wight, that we can see a bit of it, at least in the Isle of Wight DLCs. Very nice. And with those milestones, we can now blend over and look how ScotRail actually fits into this picture. So with having a monolithic block like British Rail is actually the question, how does ScotRail fit into that? Is it a private company? Is it a state-run thing? And it is a lot of it, actually. For the first time, from what I could find, was starting in September 83, so that was shortly after sectorization, still when British Railways was the monolithic block controlling everything. The ScotRail logo was first introduced as a brand by the Scottish region. That was before that just the Scottish region of British Rail, and starting in September 83 they used on their liveries this brand of ScotRail for the trains in the British region. It was still British Rail, Scottish region, run by the British Railway Board, and so not an agency but a company answering to the Secretary of State for Transport, who is the head of the Department for Transport, and this is part of His Majesty's government at that time, Her Majesty's government, the government for the United Kingdom. And this also encompassed at the time all the lines in Scotland. And most of the services were then run by provincial, and starting at 89 regional railways, and starting in 83 they had not the normal, or most of them did not have the normal regional railway liveries, but a modified one with one stripe in a different color and with this ScotRail thingy. So this is, for example, one locomotive, more or less the intercity executive livery on the locomotive, but with a different colored second stripe, not road, but not road. Er was geen rode line. There was not the red stripe, there was this light blue stripe instead of it, and you can see it maybe a bit, at least in this little picture, that they had the ScotRail logo on it along with the British Railway logo. So it started out as a brand then, and then came privatisation, and there was this Office of Passenger Rail Franchising with the Director of Passenger Rail Franchising, who was the institution at the beginning that was in charge for giving out the franchises and to privately owned companies, and also this affected at the time the Scottish lines and plain train enemy fences. By the way, I live in Canada. Intercity long distance train here aren't the best. Canada has really long lines to cover train wise. I understand that, but cool that you're on the stream. Yeah, this franchising director was the first one to give out a franchise for the Scottish lines, and that started in April 97 with a company called then ScotRail Railways Limited. So the name ScotRail was actually transformed from being a brand into the name of the company, and that was obviously a subsidiary and owned by a bigger group, the National Express Group, situated with the headquarters in Birmingham, now since 2023 renamed into Mobico Group. And if you're living in Germany, in the Rhineland, Köln, Aachen, Düsseldorf connections, you can see those trains actually quite a lot that are run by a German subsidiary of the National Express Group. And they are whitish trains with red and blue liveries stating National Express on them. I think I've been on one of those trains when I was at Cologne the other day, and they are quite frequent there. And those were the guys who were the first private operators of ScotRail trains, using a logo that looked a bit like this, and the trains were still quite colorful with blue and red and turquoise and white stripes. Those were the late 90s, the first privatized ScotRail services. Inspector says, yeah, I saw them. Talent 2s and also N-Wagen with cab cars. Yeah, they are around quite a bit. And Perny, nice to see you on the chat. How beautiful that we're all together here. Yep. So that was late 90s, and they actually preceded the fact that in July 99, shortly before the millennium, the Scottish government came into existence with the devolution process following a plebiscite, a referendum, where the people in Scotland actually voted that they wanted to have their own government, their own executive, their own parliament. And so this was instituted with an act by the United Kingdom, and by the United Kingdom, and then the Scottish government came into existence. Also the Scottish executive, no, the Scottish executive is the Scottish government. Also the Scottish Parliament came into existence, and the government obviously answering to the Parliament. And They now had their own cabinet secretary for transport and also a smaller ministry helping the cabinet secretary for transport, the minister for transport, and they also had some rights and things to say about the railway running in Scotland. And at the time, then the office of the passenger rail franchising was more or less succeeded by another authority, the Strategic Rail Authority (SRA), that was then in charge of giving out the franchises, and they had to more or less now work together with the Scottish government and the Scottish executive to do it morally. So what did you say? Choose B rail. Oh, come on. Perny said SimRail multiplayer, some service that is free when the stream starts. Okay, you redeem 10,000. We do a B rail next week if I get to that, and we're playing SimRail multiplayer with some services that is free when the stream starts. I will be true to what I put out the 10,000 points for, and then we have SimRail multiplayer next week. In case I can't do a stream next week, then the week after. But the next stream will be SimRail multiplayer. Perfect. So how late will I am at the end of the service? 6 to 10 minutes, they say. Did I get this right? Okay. I will do my best so that you guys are not right. The amount of alarms I'm setting next week is crazy. Okay, CD Raiders is a great idea. Okay, next week we will do SimRail multiplayer. But back to ScotRail and the Scottish government, because the next privately owned company to run ScotRail trains succeeded then about like 10 years after. The franchises were typically 7 years in the beginning, and there was a possibility to prolong them or elongate them by 3 years or expand them by 3 years. And this obviously happened here because 10 years of National Express in ScotRail, then a new company got the tender, First ScotRail Limited, first group that originated as a bus company, more or less first bus until 97, and then because they also ran trains, first group from Aberdeen, so actually they're a Scottish company, and they operated ScotRail then with this logo at the beginning in 2004, sometimes also with the prefix First ScotRail at the time, somewhere on the liveries, and it looked a bit like this. You can see it here, very small, the first, and then the ScotRail in the middle of the train. So this is what those trains looked like at the time, mostly. And 2 years later, the Cabinet Secretary for Transport got a new agency, the Transport Scotland Agency, that was now in charge for railway related stuff, and ScotRail, administrating ScotRail. The Strategic Rail Authority was abolished in the same year later, so no longer in charge for handing out the franchises. And Transport Scotland decided in September 2008 that they want to have a unique ScotRail livery and logo and branding for the ScotRail trains, no matter which service provider was actually running the trains. So this is when this logo that we still see in the game on every train running in Scotland on the ScotRail, on the A trains, the 385 that we know from the Edinburgh Glasgow express lines, and the 380, the Zeros, and the Express Sprinters 158, and also the 314 units that are still in the Cathcart Circle Line. So this was unified then, and was still run by First Group, by First ScotRail Limited, but now with this livery that we know from the game. And this then lasted at the present time. In 2015, though, First Group was no longer awarded the tender for running the ScotRail trains. So in the era of first ScotRail Limited, there was this affair with the with those fare dodgers that used those flexi passes quite a lot for dodging fares, obviously. And there was also this incident where they found out that their passenger numbers were actually incorrect by the unsignificant amount, but of more than 7 millions per year. And after all, they decided they want to have a different service provider, and in 2015 Abellio ScotRail Limited took over. Also again a thing, Abellio we know from the Netherlands, actually started out being a German company in the beginning, but then bought by Dutch companies with the headquarters in Utrecht, and belongs to the Nederlandse Spoorwegen, the Dutch, the biggest Dutch train operating company, state-owned in the Netherlands, and they ran the Scottish trains in 2015. Starting then, we also have in Germany some trains that are run by Abellio Germany. Again, there we can find them, and Spectre says the Koploper. The Koploper is such a fascinating train, actually. A friend of mine suggested the other day that there should be a club promoting those trains, the jumbo jet trains, meaning the trains that had the driving cabs on top of passenger compartments, or at least areas that are accessible by passengers. Why not? But the Koploper is actually a train that I'm looking forward to. And Cedar says, cool, you could do a brief rundown of the history of other major railway companies. Well, I will get to this, since I am running out of signaling safety system and technical things a bit. I can come up with things like this more often. Yeah, Abellio, they were also the guys who introduced the D0, the 380, as far as I know, and those A trains on the Glasgow Edinburgh line, the 385. You remember those were the trains that had problems with the windscreens at the beginning, because you couldn't see the signals properly because the windscreens are tilted and you saw the signals twice or anything. Plain Train Anime fan, he'll probably never do this, but would be cool if someone did the history of my parents' home country railways, the Manila Railroad Company, Philippine National Railways. If I have anything in the game to show of Manila or the Philippines at all, I will I will love doing this, definitely. But I need to have some connection with anything that I can actually do in the game, and then I will come back to this. No problem. Yeah, and what happened in April 22? Abellio had in the end quite a lot of problems with union strikes and stuff, and then Transport Scotland was not so happy anymore with the performance, so the 7 years ran out and were not extended by the 3 years anymore. And what happened then? Then something happened that you can see quite a lot in those years in the United Kingdom. Then there was no privately owned company anymore to take over the train running there, and then the Department of Transportation, or here the Cabinet Secretary for Transport, has to step in with a publicly state-owned company that runs the trains then, and acts as an operator of last resort. So if no suitable private company is there in a privatized railway system, then the state has to step in and provide the services for the customers. And this is what the Scottish government did, and they created a ScotRail Trains Limited, what is a publicly owned company operating as the operator of last resort. And now, since April 22 running the trains in Scotland. It is not owned directly by the government, but it is owned by a holding company that also holds the company that runs the Caledonian Sleeper, that was separated from the rest of the Scottish trains some time ago. So you have a holding company with at least those two train running companies, and this is again answering or owned by Transport Scotland, what is a state agency, a non-departmental state agency as far as I have seen, and if I understood that correctly, how the Scottish government is structured in that way. But this is again answering to the Cabinet Secretary for Transport, part of the Scottish government, answering to the Scottish Parliament again, so state owned. So since April 2022, we have again not anymore a privatized running, but trains run by a state-owned company in Scotland. And by the way, just a little looking across the fence, this is the operator of last resort holding company in Scotland. Something like this also exists in England. That was called the Directly Operated Railways, DOR. They actually were branded like this in some situations or on some lines, and then in 2018 succeeded by a company called the Department for Transport OLR Holdings Limited, the DOL, and then renamed in December 24 the DFT Operator Limited. So this is what in Scotland this SRH is. We have that for England, and for Wales, for Welsh trains, there also exists an operator of last resort, at least since 2021, called the Transport for Wales, from what I was able to find out. If you ask yourself, or actually this is a price question for you, so what is that in Northern Ireland? Is there an operator of last resort? And the answer obviously is no, because in Northern Ireland the railway has never been privatized. It was always run by a state-owned body, due to the fact that it needs to interact with the Republic of Ireland railway system that actually uses a different gauge. I didn't know that until recently, that in Ireland they have a broader gauge than in the rest of the continent. And unlike the British system on Great Britain, actually, that is connected with the Channel Tunnel with France, Ireland does not have any connection railway-wise with anything outside of the island. So in Northern Ireland you don't need an operator of last resort, and so there is none. But this was the thing with the operator of last resort, going back to our ScotRail. Yeah, what happens post 2024? Great British Railways is supposed to collect all the franchises again, so there should be no new franchises. If the franchises run out, then Great British Railways is supposed to pick them up and in the end own all the stuff. They are getting it from Network Rail, and then it should be the big monolithic state-owned railway provider as far as railway traffic in Great Britain goes. How this actually happens then, if this is supposed, they are, from what I could read, they actually have to work together with the Scottish executive, with the Scottish government, but whether the trains will be rebranded then, if they still use the same branding, and how they have to get an accord with Transport Scotland and the Scottish government, I don't know yet. I did not get this deep into the corresponding Railway Act. Will be interesting to see that. At the moment, at any rate, we are here. Private state-owned company as operator of last resort, running our ScotRail trains since 2008 in the same livery and with the same branding, more or less. Yeah, and now we're going back to our line. And just as a quick reminder, what we're doing today, we went from Edinburgh here across the Forth Bridge, and now we did not go to the right, hugging the coast, but we went to the left across the loop line and going now here in Rosysthe. This is where we are, passing Dunfermline City, Dunfermline Queen Margaret Hospital, and then out to Cowdenbeath, Lochgelly, Cardenden, and then somewhere here, Glenrothes with Thornton. Station is a bit away from Glenrothes. This is why it's called Glenrothes with Thornton. And then we are not merging onto the line, not going to Mark Inch or around the circle, because the services end here just like in real life they do. And here there's this rebrand paint train equals a sweet gameplay pack DLCs for DDG. Yes, actually this does. This is correct. But well, on the other hand, they could do so many historic liveries if they wanted. And this is what is one thing that is so great about the Just Trains thing that they did in the Blackpool branches, that they actually gave us 3 historic liveries with the Pacers without requiring us to buy them as separate gameplay or other packages. Alright, we're in Rosythe. We're riding into the rising sun, into the dawn. And also here I think Rivet did a very good job with the stations and the station lightings. Also with the scenery. I have to throw some sand so that I'm not that late. Spectars, a Tigerways livery gameplay pack. When? Well, you can already download the Tigerways livery for the 52 from, what is it called again? The Creators Hub. Unfortunately, I cannot put up the livery for the ICE3 because of licensing issues there. Think the Fox, hi, and thank you for following. Great to have you on the chat. I hope you're doing... I hope you're having a nice time this evening. So, closing into Dunfermline City. There will be a 50 limit when coming into Dunfermline. At the moment we're still in the 65 limit. Maybe we want to have some. A bit of the running sound coming in through the open window. And now it's getting day quite fast, isn't it? Signal bridge, behind that bridge that we're running up to. There will be a bend to the right if I'm not mistaken. The historical line from Stirling coming in from the left. Oh, actually we did not accelerate up to the 50, but nevertheless. Up until the 1930s there were actually passenger services coming in from Stirling. Here's the limit to 50. since then it's only a goods line. Yeah, that one. Again, with some discussions about reopening the line for passenger traffic,
We'll soon
but I don't
arrive
think that
at
this will happen soon.
Dunfermline City. Don't forget to take your belongings with you before you leave the train.
So, 2 minutes and a bit is our delay at the moment. And now starting at Dunfermline, we're actually going up the hill. You can see that. That's quite an incline here. And starting our DMU up this incline in snowy conditions is not really what you want to make up lost time. Hey, apparently I did not manage to get my reverse at neutral. Also here it is critical to use the hill start brake. And I have to throw some sand on the tracks here, because otherwise we could not really get this train moving uphill. Even with the sand, you can see it already in notch 5. We're getting wheel slip protection activity. And see, the radar hopes that I switch to winter wheels. Yeah, I got the wheel sets with the spikes out. And Spectre says, enter Sandman. Yeah, I'm so happy that I do not have to pick up all that sand that I'm throwing on the tracks. With sanding, typically you don't want to throw sand on slipping wheels. So you have to take back the power a bit and sand first and then accelerate. I don't know why, but for me being late in Trains and World does not feel as concerning in SimRail. It is just the UI difference. Yeah, it's true. It also does not affect your scoring, right? That much, or at least not that obviously. You get fewer points when you stop, but you don't get a message like you're being late, minus 50 points in red. That feels much more like a reprimand than just getting fewer points for stopping at the station. So, Dunfermline Queen Margaret. Longest station name in Scotland.
Dunfermline Queen Margaret. Don't forget to take your belongings with you.
Probably the shortest station name in Wales. But the longest one in Scotland. Queen Margaret, obviously talking about a Scottish queen. I think it's the same Queen Margaret. This is also the namesake for the university in Edinburgh that I visited once with some colleagues. And this station is named after a hospital, Queen Margaret Hospital. And see, the races in SimRail, you can't do anything about it. You just stand on the right light for as long as the AI wants. Well, this is why in multiplayer you don't get docked for being late at all. What is obviously a nice thing. And again, yeah, I wanted to demonstrate what happens if you don't use the hill brake. It just takes so long for the traction to pick up that you roll backwards. And even though my finger snapped back on the hill brake, you could see that the train is rolling backwards a bit. So much for demonstrating that. And the muscle memory preventing it again. Theodore says, I honestly don't dare to touch the multiplayer because I'm afraid I'll mess up everyone's schedule. Oh, don't be afraid. There are enough servers where you can be alone if you don't want to interact with people, or more or less alone. And I'm sure that the way that you play the game, you will be totally capable of fitting in. And if someone flames you, well, usually it should not happen. So I can only encourage using the multiplayer in SimRail. It's really, really nice. So you see, Cowdenbeath is more or less on the summit. Yeah. So for first steps, just pick a server like English 2, where there are like 3 or 4 people running around, and you will have AI dispatches most of the time. And from my experience, if you don't do something deliberately stupid, then nobody will actually have a problem with what you're doing. If you're running a heavy freight train, then sometimes the dispatcher will ask you to speed up a bit. But then you can tell him, well, I'm heavy. I'm just getting this train through 20 kilometers per hour limit. I need some time to get it rolling again. And this is hard uphill. And then even the dispatcher will understand. Spectre trains in World Multiplayer would be interesting, keeping the option to delete trains. Oh, And CD Radar says, I've come across try hard a few times, but most players are perfectly fine with being slower with less experience. That happens in real life too, and it adds more realism than players expected. Yeah, I'm sure that you're kidding, Spectre. I was just thinking, with the population of trolls that exists there online, how annoying this would be. But multiplayer in Trainsim World is obviously something that is missing really hard. Dispatching properly, working together as driver, fireman, driver, guard should be something. At some point in time.
We'll soon arrive at Cowdenbeath. Don't forget to take your
Cowdenbeath.
before you leave the train.
Tea and biscuits with the manager mode. Oh yeah. Imagine that. A supervisor, and you can scold all the other players for what they are doing wrong. That is a nightmare. So now we're running downhill. First thing we have to hit is Lochgelly. So we're starting uphill actually, but soon enough we will go down to Lochgelly, and for that we will encounter a speed limit. To 35 miles per hour. There will be a bridge, there will be a bend to the right, and in the bend to the right there is a limit to 35. And then this limit at some point arcanely increases to 40 without a sign. And I'm not entirely sure whether this is intentional or not. Here's to 35. Then you can see it here, right? It increases to 40 without there being a sign. Coming from the other direction, the limit is 40 all the way. Well, that is obviously uphill. So now we should be in the 40 limit without having encountered any sign. Yeah, we're in the 40 limit, so we can let the train roll to 40. This body of water to the left, I actually forgot what it was named. It is some pond with a quite complicated name starting with an L, if I remember correctly. And CD Radar says they could make functional restaurant cars, and there could be a mode for the service where you would deliver coffee and food. Interesting headlights on the train, says Spectre. Actually, why am I using day running? Nobody told me that I should use night running. Since we started at the night, now we can soon switch to day running. But to be able to do this, I have to be at night running. Accelerating to 60. But stopping at Lochgelly is actually quite challenging, because you're stopping in quite a bit of a gradient. So you have to slow down early and not to accelerate too hard. Theodore says DTG seems don't have enough resources to fix old bugs, let alone to monitor the multiplayer. Yeah, that is the thing, nerd. Oh no, what did I do? I hit the emergency brakes. Look what the brake gauge is doing. It is actually releasing because the wheel slip protection is kicking in. Quite nicely to demonstrate. Quite stupid that I hit the emergency brake. So that was a blotched stop. That's the problem if you do too many things on your own. But you can actually... It was interesting to see that the wheel slip protection, even in the emergency brake mode, was regulating the brake pressure in the cylinder. The problem is, says Spectre, with putting out new DLCs, the amount of bugs increases and it gets virtually impossible. Yeah, that is the point. I can always repeat that. When I first came into the game, they said we have those legacy DLCs and we will always keep them up to date and build the new features into the old DLCs. And I thought, wow, that is a stout promise. How are you going to do this with more and more and more DLCs on the market? The preservation crew for the win, yeah. That's why I always said the best crew is the preservation crew. And then all of a sudden, with Trains in World 3, the preservation crew was reassigned a special task force, and you never ever heard anything of them. So we're in a 60 limit. Cardenden. Let's see if I can do a proper stop downhill as well. But this is actually why I stopped buying the new DLCs, because it is always frustrating if you see a new DLC, you think, oh, it's actually quite good. There are some niggles. If you just fix this and just fix this, and then it never gets fixed. They fix some gameplay thingies, but signaling, nope. Safety systems, nope. And if you open tickets about bugs, they have this more or less standardized response that they thank you for your ticket, but they need a video showing that bug.
We'll soon arrive.
Even if you send them a screenshot, that is totally enough
Don't
to
forget
demonstrate
to take
that.
your belongings with you before you
They
leave
ask
the
you
train.
for a video, and I think this deflects so many tickets because people don't bother and don't want to take it upon themselves to invest the time to make a video. Still have to make a video about one ticket that I opened about the derailment in the Blackpool DLC with the class 40. What is that now? I wanted to do a proper job stopping here. And what am I doing? I'm stalling the train because I'm reading what Perny writes. Well, streaming and driving a train with some precision actually does not go together properly. I should have known. Inspector says I have to snicker when I see something on a previous stream and they say it will be fixed in a first upgrade real soon. Yeah, they said they will fix problems with the alerter on the Antelope Valley route in the first update, and it is worse than it ever was. Proof us wrong, DTG, says Theodoros. It'd be better for all of us. Yes, I second that. Have you ever received any feedback on the time bug on Semmering? Well, they thanked me for issuing the video, but that's it. So after having done SimRail multiplayer, I'll probably have to do a video about wheel setup notation and this stuff, like, you know, this CO apostrophe 1 CO plus CO1 notations, because at some points in the Blackpool DLC 1 CO1 locomotives derail, whereas CO locomotives don't. In other words, the class 40 and 45 they derailed, 47 doesn't. And CD Raider says the bug with ETCS on the double Pendolino in SimRail has apparently been fixed. That is good news. I didn't realize that there has been any update on SimRail. But we should look into this as well. Following one comment, I actually managed to get the second Pendolino working when I tried it again after the video that we did. So if the ETCS is fixed and we get the second Pendolino working, that would be actually quite cool. And they're actually doing something, they're fixing stuff. But well, to be fair, they don't have that many DLCs. And every opportunity still to spaghettify their code. Nevertheless, I'm looking forward to their Whoosh Warszawa DLC. So, this last part towards Glenrothes with Thornton is actually quite relaxing to drive. Because you're running downhill, but not... What did I do now? I actually wanted to use the external camera. And you can almost just let it roll. Gradient is almost exact the amount that you need for having the train roll. Coast downhill without losing any speed. Two miles to go to Glenrothes with Thornton. And then we have navigated the loop line. And now is our ping stopping time. And still 1.6 miles to go. Alright, got to prepare for the stop. There's not that much gradient anymore, so we can slide in with brake 1. Here's our yellow signal. Announcement is preparing.
We'll soon arrive at Glenrothes with Thornton.
Glenrothes with Thornton.
Take your belongings with you before you leave the train.
So, 2 minutes and counting for being late. So, predictions were a bit higher, I guess. So my delay is about 2 minutes to 30, something in between. And CDRA says, I'm flying to Norway at the end of the month, so we'll see how good the rail connection is between the airport and the center of Oslo. That sounds interesting. Last time I've been to Norway was when I was a kid, actually. So, let's check for the exact delay. Well, it doesn't say the exact delay. It was 2 minutes and a bit. I guess the prediction was wrong. Nevertheless, thank you for participating and spending your tiger paws on it. I want to point out that I managed, without getting docked for speeding, with all the other mistakes like using the wrong lighting and stopping short at Lochgelly. At least I did not get docked for speeding. Don't worry about that. Prediction was cancelled. Was it cancelled? Why was it cancelled? Because no one participated. Anyway, thank you for putting it up the prediction, because there was only one participant. I see. Okay, what I still wanted to do before we leave, return to free roam. This train is going back to... Ah. We are actually turning around here, as it seems. We're moving this train back where we came from, if I see that correctly. So just let's do that. We have the time. That means we would close down the cab here. Oh, it wasn't even on anymore. Interesting. Taillights. Headlights off. Safety systems off. Now it is registering again. I wanted to deregister. Confirm deregister. That's what I wanted to do. Anything that we still have to do, obviously this has to go off. Brake 3 locked. Close our window so that it does not... Look at that! Now we got ejected through the roof. Heaven's sake. When did this happen last time in a Trains World DLC? Bernie says that happened to me many, many times. And... well, yeah, Hightower, we are now in the ceiling. So, we probably have to... miff. Any chance we get out of this again? Maybe if we go into photo mode quickly. And then... no! We're stuck here. Well... that is a bit annoying. Because... yeah, obviously we would have to shunt the train around to the track on the opposite side to get it back. Why we do this? I don't know. Well, people could get on the train here on this side. But they want to have the train on the other track when it goes back to Edinburgh. Anyway, so what I can't do is show how this line here connects with the other line. That fixes... oh, I saw it late. Control and... yeah, equals... Sorry, Perny. Thank you for the advice. Can we find that service in... is it a timetable service? Must be actually, right? Let's see if we can find this Glenrothes. Thornton. It would be something like this, a Glenrothes with Thornton shunt, I guess. Let's see if we hit that service. At any rate, I don't need to shut down my cab and go to the other end, because we're already at the other end, probably. Glenrothes with Thornton North they're sending us? No. Well, we are already at the other end. But why do we have to the other... go to the other end now? Let's find out. Okay, DSD works. Let's have some lights. And then let's get over there. If we start in that direction, we most probably have a limit of 20. Yeah, actually we're going the other way around. We're going the way towards Mark Inch. Should have checked out. Why are we stopping now? And where are we going now? That's an interesting shunting. We're just going out a couple of yards and then we're going back. Okay. Makes sense, not suspect. Yeah, whatever the idea is of that, let's find out. Off. Locked. Break 3 should be... Did I forget anything? I thought I was shutting down the cab here. Well, people are here and they are docile. For a service not in service, there are actually quite a lot of people on the train. Get to set up and shut down cabs, yeah, that makes sense, but... Well, that is one of the nicest places here. In the corner behind the loo. Let's have some cab lights. So let's see what happens here. Test okay, this one is already active. Shunting as a group experience. Night running. Ah, I already did that. Obviously. But I need some wipers. And now we've got a red light. Interesting. It is actually a green light. Says it is a caution aspect. Looks quite red for me, actually. Yeah, well, I should have gone through Devolution saying that it's actually a quite nice DLC, what it still is. But this shunting experience here is a bit weird. So we're just shunting out of the station with all the passengers, shunting back into the station where we just left, passing a red light that is treated as a caution light. And that's the service. All right. Well, yeah, we did not even switch tracks. Classic America. What is Classic America here? A little spat never killed anyone. Order 40. Yes, all those stuff are probably train versus shunting service signaling. To be honest, if a signal cannot show those 2 additional lights, then you can call a shunting service past a red signal, as far as I know. But why we were moving the train out of the station here in the first place is beyond me. That beats me. I actually thought we were going back to the other track in the other direction, going across the switch, and then we go in so that we are on the left track to start our service, right? Let's just see how many points we were supposed to do there. 400 points we were supposed to collect to get the platinum medal. Alright. Trains in World has box even in such a simple service. Yeah, I don't know how this fits together, because typically in the timetable those services are supposed to make sense. That's just for... Oh, this is a completely different service here. That's going back to Edinburgh Waverley, but it must be the same one. Just let's see where this one starts. So even the box have box. Yeah. Next level box. I just want to know where this train is situated here now. Yeah, this is obviously the train here. We're starting here. We're starting on the right one. So we just left the station, went back into the station, and I thought we are going out here, going across the crossover and setting back so that we can start from the left track. What we typically do. But running out and running in is a weird behavior. Well, just so that we see where we are, this is where our little shunting experience here ended. This is the line coming from Kirkcaldy. This is the joint line going to Markinch, and then on to Ladybanks, where it splits between the lines to Dundee and Perth. And this is the Leven rail link that the video was about. Okay, this will probably be fixed in the next update. Says CD Radar. No, it won't be fixed in the next update. I'm quite sure this is a timetable anomaly. Why this train just doesn't stay where it is and you switch cabs beats me. But this is how it is. They'll have the team look into it, yes. You know, all the phrases that they coined to deflect stuff like this. And well, what is a bit sad is that the community does not really care, as long as there is a new flashy train, a new flashy route, or a new flashy livery to be released within a couple of weeks. But nevertheless, we have to make do with what we have, and to be fair, it is a lot in this DLC. Much that is in the DLC is really nice. The scenery, the Firth Bridge, and I enjoyed playing it a lot for the past weeks. And next week we will be back with Pernie's Choice. He invested 10,000 tiger paws for it to pick the next B-Reel, and that is some multiplayer on SimRail next week on Sunday, if everything works as intended. If not, the week after. And Pernie says that's something that is very different in SimRail, and I like. The community does not expect a new train every month and just want the sim to be very stable and realistic. Yeah, that is something that I also enjoy a lot at SimRail. And this jumping from one hype to the other is actually, well, I think Train Sim World was a little bit different when I joined this franchise in the Train Sim World 2, in the young Train Sim World 2 era. But well, they have to feed their employees and sell their stuff. And as long as the community likes it like that, then it's fair to do it. And it is also fair to say that there is a lot of nice stuff that you can encounter in Train Sim World still. And sometimes you just have to dig deep enough to find it. And make the best out of it. I hope you liked a bit my short rundown of the history of ScotRail. I will probably do that with different railway companies or lines or franchises, brands in the future, if it seems to make sense. And as always, if you have suggestions for what we should talk about in the streams, just let me know and I will try to dig into it. Be it something historical, like in one comment I was asked about the pre-tops system for handling freight cars in Great Britain. I'm still looking into that, but this is hard to find sources for it. Spectre says history of Flix train 1900 to 1950. Thank you for the streams. You and all subsidiaries under Deutsche Bahn. That would be a long one. The history of Flix train in the early 1950s, a shorter one. Anyway, thank you guys for your support, for staying with me, for watching this stream, for commenting, taking part in the chat, and see you around. Bye bye.